The new season begins just days after the end of the first season. We find ourselves with Daemon Targaryen, brother of the deceased King Viserys, at the Wall in the north. He meets with Lord Cregan Stark, head of House Stark, seeking an alliance. Cregan is hesitant to commit his army so close to winter, needing his men to guard the wall against the dangers that come with the season. However, he is reminded of their ancient oath to the king and their commitment to their word. Cregan agrees to send 2,000 men south to fight alongside Daemon. Before they can conclude their discussion, a message arrives for Cregan from Rhaenys Targaryen, bearing news of Lucerys Valarion's death at the hands of Aemon Targaryen. Daemon is devastated, and the two immediately decide to return to Dragonstone. At Dragonstone, Daemon wastes no time in approaching Rhaenys, asking her to join him in attacking Aemond and Vhagar to avenge Lucerys' death. Rhaenys refuses, as Rhaenyra Targaryen has yet to decide how to proceed against Aemond. We learn that Rhaenyra has not returned to Dragonstone since the death of her son, but remains at sea, still clinging to the hope that Lucerys may be alive. Rhaenys makes it clear to Daemon that no action will be taken until Rhaenyra returns. Meanwhile, we see Corlys Velaryon, Rhaenys' husband, at his fleet, which is undergoing repairs. Corlys speaks with one of his men, and we understand that his fleet is blockading Blackwater Bay, but is depleted and in need of maintenance. Rhaenyra grieves the loss of her son, searching for any sign that he may have survived. She encounters a group of fishermen who have recovered something from the water. Rushing to them, she discovers tragically that they have found the body of her son. Overcome with grief, she takes his dragon pin, and now fully embracing the reality of his death, resolves to return to Dragonstone. Daemon searches a captured ship and finds Mysaria, the White Worm, attempting to flee King's Landing. Mysaria is reminded that she is the former head of Whisperers in King's Landing and had aided Otto Hightower, Alicent's father, in crowning Aegon as king. Mysaria is brought before Daemon, who rebukes her for her role in Aegon's ascension and accuses her of betrayal. Mysaria justifies her actions, claiming she needed money and that Daemon, had he been in power, would have rewarded her as well. Daemon, enraged, spares her life but orders her imprisoned. News of Rhaenyra's return finally reaches Dragonstone, and Daemon, along with everyone else, rushes to greet her. Rhaenyra confirms the truth of their son's death to a devastated Daemon. Standing before them all, she declares her desire for revenge and demands Aemon's immediate death. Her call is met with unanimous agreement. As Rhaenyra retires to her chambers, Jace Velaryon arrives at Dragonstone and informs his mother of the agreement he secured with Cregan Stark to send 2,000 soldiers south. He also reveals his pact with Jane Arryn, Rhaenys' niece and the Lady of the Eyrie, securing House Arryn's support in the coming war in exchange for keeping his dragon in the Vale to protect their lands. Mother and son then share a moment of grief for the loss of Lucerys. A somber funeral is held for Lucerys, with grief heavy in the air. In King's Landing, Aegon visits his wife's sister Helaena, inquiring about their son, Jaehaerys. Helaena informs him that Jaehaerys is in his study. She expresses her fear of the beast beneath the boards. Aegon is taken aback by her statement, but leaves without further thought. Helena's words are not idle, as we know from the previous season that she experiences strange visions and premonitions that often hold significance. Meanwhile, Alicent meets with Larys Strong, then departs for a meeting with Aegon, who is now holding council. He is accompanied by his son, Jaehaerys, a foolish move on his part, signifying his continued poor judgment. Otto Hightower, Aegon's grandfather in hand, is also present. The council discusses the war with Rhaenyra, how to approach the situation, whether to attack or break the blockade, and the logistics of each. Aegon proposes invading Harrenhal and forcing the lords to break the blockade, even if it means killing them all. Aemon supports his brother's proposal, urging the need to coerce the lords into compliance. Otto and Alicent oppose their plan, deeming it reckless, as they wish to utilize their dragons. Aemon is angered by their dismissal. Aegon goes to sit with some of the small folk to hear their grievances. He expresses a desire to help them, but Otto counsels him against it, advice Aegon blindly follows. After the meeting, Larys Strong approaches Aegon, subtly planting seeds of dissent and attempting to persuade him to break free from Otto's control. Aegon seems receptive to Larys' words, and it is unclear what he may do in the future. Alicent sits with her father, Otto, who implores her to present a united front and work together to control both Aegon and Aemond, as their actions, left unchecked, could have dire consequences. Alicent agrees, and they solidify their pact. Later that night, Aemond speaks with Criston Cole, and they agree on the necessity of eliminating Rhaenyra and her forces. They fear that Alicent still harbors some affection for her former friend, and with Otto and Alicent controlling Aegon, their path to war is hindered. Back on Dragonstone, Daemon seeks out Mysaria and asks for her help in entering the Red Keep undetected so he can kill Aemond. In return, he offers her freedom. Mysaria agrees to help, informing Daemon of an individual in King's Landing who can assist him. Daemon arrives in King's Landing and seeks out one of the gold cloaks guarding the Red Keep. The guard knows Daemon well, having served under him when Daemon was commander of the City Watch. Daemon takes the guard to a Ratcatcher, the individual Mysaria told him could get him into the Red Keep. We realize that this is the beast beneath the boards that Helena feared. Daemon instructs the Ratcatcher to get him and the gold cloak inside the Red Keep so they can reach Aemon Targaryen. He gives him partial payment, promising the rest once the deed is done. The Ratcatcher agrees to carry out the task. The Ratcatcher leads the guard into the Red Keep, and they begin searching for Aemon. During their search, they pass Aegon, but he is oblivious to their presence and doesn't acknowledge them. The Ratcatcher and the guard continue until they reach Aemon's chambers, but find it empty. The guard continues to search while the Ratcatcher waits. The guard encounters a servant girl and assaults her, but she manages to escape. Unfazed, he rejoins the Ratcatcher in another room. The Ratcatcher proposes killing Jaehaerys, the queen's son and heir to the throne, instead of Aemond, claiming this would serve Daemon's purpose. He argues that Daemon wants a son for a son, implying that Jaehaerys, as the queen's son, would be equivalent to Rhaenyra's son, Lucerys. The guard looks at Helena's twin children, who are nearly identical. Helena, in her grief-stricken state, reveals which twin is her son. The guard and the Ratcatcher attack and kill the boy. Helena, traumatized and horrified, gathers her surviving child and flees to her mother, Alicent. She reveals what has transpired, sharing the devastating news that Jaehaerys, her son and heir to the Iron Throne, is dead. Alicent, in shock after the news of Prince Jacaerys' death spreads, chaos engulfs the castle. The scene shifts to King Viserys' room, where he used to build models of the kingdom. Prince Aegon is drowning in grief over his son. In a fit of rage, he destroys everything within reach, screaming and declaring war on Princess Rhaenyra and her supporters, vowing their deaths. Aegon storms into his council chamber, where his mother Alicent, Otto Hightower, Criston Cole, and the rest of the council are assembled. Aegon berates them for failing to protect his son and confronts Criston Cole, questioning his absence during the prince's final moments. Cole is visibly distressed, as he was with Alicent in her chambers at the time, their affair a secret from the court. Cole lies, claiming he was asleep and unaware of the events, but Aegon remains unconvinced and continues to rebuke him. Larys Strong, also known as the Clubfoot, arrives at the council meeting and informs Aegon that they have apprehended the guard who murdered Jacaerys while attempting to escape the castle, the prince's head in his possession. Aegon orders Larys to interrogate him and uncover who ordered the assassination. Otto, seizing an opportunity presented by Jacaerys' death, proposes to Aegon that they hold a grand funeral for the prince in the heart of the city. Alicent, Helena, and a large number of Otto's followers will be in attendance. The objective is to spread rumors that Rhaenyra orchestrated the young prince's murder, thus swaying public support towards Aegon and tarnishing Rhaenyra's image amongst the noble family. Criston questions Eric's loyalty, accusing him of complicity in the murder, particularly since it occurred during his watch. Eric defends himself, claiming that he was protecting Aegon at the time, but Criston remains unconvinced. Criston then tasks Eric with proving his loyalty to King Aegon. He orders him to exploit his resemblance to his twin brother and infiltrate Rhaenyra's inner circle with the intent of assassinating her. Although apprehensive, Eric reluctantly agrees to carry out this dangerous mission. In one of King's Landing's squares, a group of Ratcatchers are executed by hanging on the orders of King Aegon, who decided to eliminate them all after failing to identify the traitor involved in Jacaerys' murder. Ironically, the Ratcatcher who facilitated the assassination is among those hanged. The families of the Ratcatchers express their grief and anger over the loss of their loved ones, punished for a crime they did not commit. Otto confronts King Aegon about his reckless decision to execute the Ratcatchers, warning him of the repercussions it will have on the king's image. The populace will perceive him as rash and unwise. Aegon attempts to justify his actions, revealing to Otto that he sent Eric to assassinate Rhaenyra. Appalled, Otto condemns Aegon's decision to dispatch Eric without consulting the council. He reprimands Aegon, calling him a fool and asserting that his father, King Viserys, was right to question his fitness to rule. Aegon defends himself, claiming that his father chose him to rule because he trusted him. Otto refutes this, declaring that Viserys did no such thing. Infuriated, Aegon strips Otto of his position as Hand of the King and appoints Criston Cole in his place. Saddened by Aegon's decision, Otto warns him that he will regret it and then departs the chamber, carrying the symbol of his former office. Otto returns to his chambers and begins packing his belongings to leave the Red Keep. His daughter, Alicent, arrives to bid him farewell and inquire about his destination. He informs her that he intends to go to Oldtown to oversee their son, Prince Daeron's, training. Alicent advises him to seek refuge with House Tyrell, as they wield more power and influence than House Hightower. Otto agrees and sets off. On Dragonstone, Rhaenyra convenes with her advisors. Grief and rage are evident upon her features as she processes the news of her son Jacaerys' murder. Rhaenyra seeks to uncover those responsible for the crime, her suspicions immediately falling upon Daemon, who attends the meeting with an air of composure, feigning ignorance. However, Rhaenyra, astute and discerning, sees through his facade and recognizes his involvement. After the meeting concludes, Rhaenyra confronts Daemon, accusing him of orchestrating her son's murder to curry favor. She admonishes him, highlighting the immense trouble his actions have caused and the irrevocable damage inflicted upon her alliances. She will undoubtedly lose the loyalty of many noble houses. Daemon confesses to ordering the assassination of Aemond, but claims his men erred in carrying out the task and mistakenly killed Jacaerys. He attempts to deflect culpability, but his attempts are futile. Enraged, Rhaenyra rebukes Daemon, stating that she never trusted him and his recent actions have only solidified her doubts. Daemon, seeking to manipulate the situation, urges Rhaenyra to be courageous, drawing a parallel to their father, who, he alleges, feared bestowing the throne upon him despite his inherent right. This allusion clearly reveals Daemon's own aspirations for the Iron Throne. Rhaenyra, realizing through Daemon's words that her father never trusted him and was right to do so, orders Daemon to leave Dragonstone and travel to Harrenhal to secure the loyalty of the noble families residing there. She promises to forgive him should he succeed. Furious, Daemon departs Dragonstone, mounting his red dragon, Caraxes, and sets course for Harrenhal. Rhaenyra summons Mysaria and instructs her to take her dragon and fly to a location near King's Landing. Her task, to discreetly observe the city and relay any pertinent information back to Rhaenyra. Mysaria accepts her directive and departs to fulfill her mission. Rhaenyra sits down with Lord Larys Strong to discuss the recent events. Overwhelmed by grief and seeking someone to blame, she accuses Mysaria of being responsible for all the tragedies that have befallen her, including the death of her son. Lord Larys defends Mysaria, assuring Rhaenyra that she is not culpable. He discloses Mysaria's motivations for assisting Daemon, revealing that he had promised her freedom from her former life. Rhaenyra then questions Mysaria, asking if she believes she will be granted her freedom after all that has transpired. Rhaenyra does not provide a definitive answer, leaving Mysaria's fate hanging in the balance. After a period of contemplation, Rhaenyra makes the decision to release Mysaria, recognizing that she is not to blame for the tragic events. She informs Mysaria that a ship will transport her to the free city of Pentos, where she can live a life free from the conflicts of Westeros. Grateful, Mysaria accepts Rhaenyra's offer. As Mysaria departs the castle, accompanied by a guard, and makes her way towards the waiting ship, she observes a figure approaching from the sea. She recognizes the man as Arik, the twin brother of Rhaenyra's knight, and realizes that he has come to assassinate her. Arik reaches the castle gates. The guards, mistaking him for Rhaenyra's knight due to their uncanny resemblance, allow him entry without challenge. Arik begins his search for Rhaenyra, his movements stealthy as he navigates the castle corridors. Suddenly, he spots his twin brother ahead. Reacting quickly, he conceals himself, avoiding detection. Arik continues onward, making his way to Rhaenyra's chambers. The door has two entrances. He quietly bars the rear entrance, ensuring no escape. He then approaches the front entrance, preparing to confront Rhaenyra. Arik enters Rhaenyra's chamber, drawing his sword and pointing it menacingly at her. He expresses remorse for what he is about to do, but claims his hand is forced. Rhaenyra is stunned by Arik's sudden attack, but before he can strike, her knight, Eric, bursts into the room, alerted by the commotion. He attempts to subdue his brother and reason with him, desperately pleading with him to spare Rhaenyra. Arik lashes out at his brother, revealing the depths of the rift between them. He reminds Eric that it was he who drove a wedge between them when he pledged his loyalty to Rhaenyra. Arik lunges at Rhaenyra once more, forcing Eric to defend her, a battle he wishes he could avoid. Despite the sorrow that overwhelms him, Eric knows he has no choice. He engages his brother in a fierce duel, their swords clashing. Ultimately, Eric gains the upper hand, driving his blade deep into Arik's stomach. Arik collapses, mortally wounded. Grief washes over Eric as he gazes down at his brother's lifeless body. He apologizes to Rhaenyra for failing to protect her from his brother. Overcome with shame and guilt for his inability to prevent the tragedy, Eric takes his own life. The episode concludes with the haunting image of Eric's suicide. We eagerly await the next season to witness the unfolding of these momentous events.